Je prasade pure sarva asa. Shakudana diroje, jamme jamme Prabhu se. Shakudana diroje, jamme jamme Prabhu se. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakasito. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakasito. Prema Bhakti Jahote Abhija Vinasayate. Prema Bhakti Jahote Abhija Vinasayate. Vede Gai Jahara Charito. Vede Gai Jahara Charito. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamaja Narabandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamaja Narabandhu. Lokanath Lokera Jivana. Lokanath Lokera Jivana. Aha Prabhu Karo Daya Deho More Pada Chaya. 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 Ebijat Kusuke Bhuvana. Ebijat Kusuke Bhuvana. Due Padora Charana. Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Bhaskachari Sakarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Shama Sundar, Radha Shama Sundar Hare. Radha Shama Sundar, Radha Shama Sundar Hare. Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai. Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Oh Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol.
Vigrajacharya Ashtotarstu Shri Shimaresi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Vigrajacharya Ashtotarstu Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Gaudiya Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopavadotnath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Nuramanveti Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Nitai Go Premanande Hari Hari Bol, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, All glories to the Assam of the devotees, all glories to the Assam of the devotees, all glories to the Assam of the devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru Gauranga.
Hare Krishna, so I'm reading from the newest Back to Godhead magazine for March and April. And this is Srila Prabhupada Speaks Out. This was a conversation between Srila Prabhupada and his disciples in September 1975, an early morning walk in Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada said, people are trying simply for sense gratification. They do not even know the purpose of life, so our mission is to eradicate this ignorance. They are living under a wrong conception of life, not a spiritual conception, but a material one. Disciple, in Kathmandu, I was asking people, what kind of enjoyment is this from smoking cigarettes? You are coughing. Intoxication, toxin, means poison. So you are actually giving yourself poison. This is sanity. This is human life. So these people usually told me, well, I'll give up cigarettes later. Srila Prabhupada, at least they admit the fault, do they not? Disciple, yes, some people do. I reminded all these people about karma. You know, according to your activity in this life, you're preparing your next life. If you live a spiritual life, you'll go to the spiritual world. If you live a materialistic life, animalistic, you'll stay in the material world and become an animal. And they all admitted, yes, I know about the law of karma, but when I said, why don't you serve Krishna? They said, later. Srila Prabhupada said, Hare Krishna. Disciple said, so Srila Prabhupada, can your instructions in the Srimad-Bhagavatam stop these people's lust? Or do we have to hope that somehow they will be frustrated in their attempts to enjoy sense gratification? Srila Prabhupada, they are being frustrated. Who is successful in this material world? Can you name any instance in which someone has really been successful? Disciple, everywhere in this material world, people are miserable. In America, Amy Vanderbilt, the famous etiquette expert, jumped out of her window. I didn't know that. Srila Prabhupada, there are many. Disciple, oh yes, in San Diego and also in San Francisco, they have these fences so that when people jump off the bridges, they are caught by the fences. Srila Prabhupada, and I think in Berkeley they had to enclose the top of the clock tower with glass. Disciple, oh yes, at the University of California to keep the students from jumping off. Srila Prabhupada, these are signs of how desperate people are, how disappointed with their life of materialism. They are always ready to commit suicide. Some 30 years ago, a man was sitting near me in a railway car, and all of a sudden, he jumped through the window. All of a sudden, he had been sitting nicely. What he was thinking, I do not know, but he took the opportunity of the open window and jumped out. I saw it. Disciple, a kind of insanity overpowered him. Srila Prabhupada, insanity. Everyone is overpowered by insanity. Everyone is trying to be happy in this material world. Everyone is overpowered by insanity. They do not know the only solution is, as Krishna says, Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Just surrender to me. But that they'll not do. Anything but surrender to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so there is Diversity Day at the University Santa Fe College today. Keshava Prabhu is going. I think it's from 11 to 3. If anyone has time and they'd like to go be with him on the chanting party, they're giving us room on the stage today. There'll be a little prasadam distribution, as well as the regular Krishna lunch that's always there. And be nice to take part. If we have a nice group, it always looks good. Leaving at 10:30 and come back around 3 o'clock. These are the devotees who assisted their spiritual master dressing the deities today. Shishi Radha Sham Sundar, Nanda Prabhu, Chota Radha Sham Sundar, Karuna Prabhu, Shishi Krishna Balaram, Devaki Prabhu, Chota Krishna Balaram, Guru Prasad Prabhu, Shishi Krishna Gornitai, Astasaki Prabhu, Chota Gornitai, Ekadasi Vrata Prabhu, Gurus and Lord Nishingada, Vilasani Prabhu, and Shesha Prabhu is giving the class today.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jamuna Tiravana Chari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribhajakacharya Ashtottara Satya Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ananta Kota Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Parishtai Bhutale Shumate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tidamane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vachanane Nirvishesha Sunyavari Vasyachi Desata. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So before beginning our recitation of Srimad-Bhagavatam this morning, I would just like to say that this morning I was appreciating the steady service that has been rendered to their lordships, Shri Shri Radhashyam Sundar, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Gauranitai, for many ways in a very steady way by Mother Nitai Priya. We don't often see her or hear her name mentioned. When we hear who dressed the deities every day, She doesn't dress every day, but she serves very faithfully and head pujari for many, many years. A very quiet, steady way. So I'd like to appreciate her. So today we're reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 28, Akrura's arrival in Vrindavan, and the texts are 23 through 27. So you can put text 27 there, we'll chant text 27. So we'll chant text 27, and I'll read through the other translations. Word meanings: Deham Vritam, of embodied beings; Iyan, this much; Artha, the goal of life; Hitva, giving up; Dambam, pride; Biyam, fear; Socham, and sorrow; Sandeshat, beginning from his being ordered by Kamsa; Ya, which; Hare, of Lord Krishna; Linga, the signs; Darshana, the seeing; Shravana, hearing about; Adibi, and so on. Deham Vritam Yan Arto Hitva Dambam Diyam Sucham Sandeshadyo Hare Linga Darshana Shravanadivi Deham Vritam Iyam Arto Hitpadam Bam Biyam Socham Sandeshadyo Hare Linga Darshana Shravanadivi Deham Vritam Iyan Arto Hitvatam Bam Biyam Sucham Sandeshadyo Hare Linga Darshana Shravanadivi Ladies.
Sunday
Okay, do you want to go back to text 23? And then you can read through the Sanskrit, or I can read the English. And read through the Sanskrit? Okay. So, text 23. And then Lord Krishna's elder brother, the foremost of the Yadus, will grasp my joined hands while I am still standing with my head bowed, and after embracing me, he will take me to his home. There he will honor me with all items of ritual welcome and inquire about how Kamsa has been treating his family members. Text 24. Sukadeva Goswami continued, my dear king, while the son of Swafalka, traveling on the road, thus meditated deeply on Sri Krishna, he reached Gokula as the sun was beginning to set. Purport, Srila Sridhar Swami comments that although Akrura did not even notice the road being deeply absorbed in meditation on Lord Krishna, he still reached Gokula on his chariot. Text 25. In the cowherd pasture, Akrura saw the footprints of those feet whose pure dust the rulers of all the planets in the universe hold on their crowns. Those footprints of the Lord, distinguished by such marks as the lotus, barley corn, and elephant goad, made the ground wonderfully beautiful. Text 26. Increasingly agitated by ecstasy at seeing the Lord's footprints, his bodily hairs standing on end became, because of his pure love, and his eyes filled with tears, Akrura jumped down from his chariot and began rolling about among the footprints, exclaiming, "Ah, this is the dust from my master's feet." The very goal of life for all embodied beings is this ecstasy, which Akrura experienced when, upon receiving Kamsa's order, he put aside all pride, fear, and lamentation, and absorbed himself in seeing, hearing, and describing the things that reminded him of Lord Krishna. Purport, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Akrura gave up fear by openly showing his love and reverence for Krishna, even though he or his family might have been punished by the angry Kamsa. Akrura gave up his pride by being an aristocratic member of society and worshipped the cowherd residents of the simple village of Vrindavan. And he gave up lamentation for his house, wife, and family, which were in danger from King Kamsa. Giving up all these things, he rolled in the dust of the lotus feet of God. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. The other day, I think it was Shamakund Prabhu, he mentioned that how Prabhupada had pointed out that Akrura's journey to Vrindavan is how one should travel to Vrindavan, how one should go to Vrindavan, indicating this type of meditation that we find described in the last several verses. So today I wanted to talk about meditation a bit. It's becoming more and more popular these days. Now, I can't claim to be an expert on meditation, especially meditation that takes place outside of Krishna consciousness, but I wanted to kind of compare that meditation to meditation that we do in Krishna consciousness. But I may be oversimplifying and overgeneralizing about meditation, so if I do, you can either correct me or just accept it. You're going to chastise me? Okay. Well, I might have it right, because my general impression of meditation, as, say, an ordinary person in this world may approach it, is that it's kind of an activity where you try to empty your mind, think peaceful thoughts, to sort of a quietude where there's nothing specific. You meditate on a candle or something. Actually, I went to wikihow.com, and if you type in there how to meditate, it gives you a whole thing, how to meditate, with illustrations and everything. And it has this idea of quietude, get away from the road where you might hear sounds of traffic, or meditate on the light of a candle or something, the things like this which are basically impersonal in nature. But when compared to the meditation described here, I mean, one of the words used in one of the translations was agitated. Increasingly agitated by ecstasy and seeing the Lord's footprints. So here's a description of meditation that, when we put it up against the sort of quietude that's generally thought about meditation, and put this word agitated, I mean, that has a real negative connotation, doesn't it? Agitated. We don't want our senses to be agitated. We don't want somebody to be agitated. But it's describing here that a Krura was agitated in his meditation. So this is a big difference when we think about meditation in terms of Krishna consciousness, that this concept comes in that not only is our meditation very personal and full of emotional experiences, but it even can become agitated. Our minds can become agitated by meditation, just the opposite of what people are trying to do quite often when they meditate. So, is this the same kind of agitation, or is it something different? Obviously, it's something different, and we want to explore a little bit how it's different here today. It's interesting, another thing here in Sridhar Swami's commentary on these verses, he says that Akrura was meditating and he didn't even notice the road that he was on. Whereas that description at WikiHow specifically says you have to get away from roads, because the sounds of the traffic will distract you. But he's on a road himself, and he's so absorbed in meditation, he doesn't even realize he's on a road. Sridhar Swami says that although Akrura did not even notice the road, being deeply absorbed in meditation on Lord Krishna. He still reached Gokula on his chariot. So that's a big difference in the type of meditation as well. Deeply absorbed. That's what we want to become in Krishna conscious meditation. We want to dive deep into the ocean of love of Krishna. We don't want to stay on the surface. On the surface, it may be calm. The waves may be calm. But we want to dive deep into the ocean beneath, and there, that's where the big aquatics swim. The whales and the sharks and everything. We want to be down there, not on the surface where it may be calm. That's the goal of our meditation. And so there are several examples of this that I want to share. Famous examples, but to show what deep absorption in meditation means. And first we turn to the Brahmin from South India who burnt his finger in his meditation. Let's just consider how he was meditating. And I want to read to you the descriptions from the Nectar of Devotion. Sometimes he would take his bath in the river Godavari. After taking his bath, he would sit in a secluded place on the bank of the river, and by practicing the yoga exercises of pranayama, he would concentrate his mind. Okay, this is what he did in his body, in his physical body. Took his bath in the river Godavari, sat on the bank of the river, practiced pranayama, fixed his mind, and then he began meditating. So the first thing might be the same thing that you find that people do to meditate. They find a quiet place and they sit down and they try to control their mind. But then he gets into some other activities which reflect this deeply absorbed. When he had fixed his mind on the form of the Lord, he began to imagine in his meditations that he was dressing the Lord very nicely in costly clothing with ornaments, helmets, and other paraphernalia. He then offered his respectful obeisances by bowing down before the Lord. After finishing the dressing, he began to imagine that he was cleaning the temple very nicely. After cleaning the temple, he imagined that he had many water jugs made of gold and silver, and he took all these jugs to the river and filled them with holy water. Now, he dressed the deities. How many people have dressed the deities? Probably a lot of people have dressed deities. When you're dressing the deities, there's a lot of little details that you have to be aware of. Especially you want to have the beautiful presentation like we have here. That the necklaces are just right, that they match the color of the outfit, that the Lord's hair and flower arrangements. Look at Srimati Radharani, nice flower arrangements, and the tika, everything is nicely done. It takes some concentration to be able to do this. I mean, you just can't go up there and just, do anything. You have to think about it. You have to think about it, and you have to get involved in it. Prabhupada says that one symptom that one is actually developing love for Krishna, he gives the example of deities, when one thinks, well, let me do it this way. In one's meditation, one's planning how to dress the deities, and one thinks, well, it would be nice if I did it like this. And so it takes some personal absorption in this to be able to do it. It's not just something that is vague. That's the point. It's not something that's just vague. Well, it's going to be kind of like this. And like meditation is generally perceived in society. It's sort of vague. Well, it's kind of like this, and it's a little hazy. Maybe it's clear. But it's not distinct and
classified like we find this description of the Brahmin. What to speak of the gold water jugs he took to the river and filling them with water, being very careful to do that nice. So it continues here. Thus he collected all kinds of paraphernalia for worship, flowers, fruits, incense, and sandalwood pulp. He collected everything to place before the deity. All these waters, flowers, scented articles, then very nicely offered to the deities to their satisfaction. Then he offered arti, and with the regular principles he finished all these activities in the correct worshiping method. In the correct worshiping method, he was careful to do it right. You know, I've had experience with my own Shilas of doing Manasa Puja. I don't think there's, at least for me, there's anything harder than that. Because, you know, you tend to like skip it over, offering Argya Park, you don't take the time you would if you're personally doing it. You just kind of skip over it, it's hard to meditate on the details. But that's what this Brahmin was doing, and he cared about doing it right. He cared about doing it right. That's why he burnt his finger. Why did he burn his finger? Because he was cooking the sweet rice, and he wanted to make sure it was right. He just didn't skip over it in the procedure in his mind. Oh, no, okay, it's nice. No, he wanted to check it. Have I made it too hot? Is it too hot? Is it offerable? Therefore, he touched the sweet rice and burned his finger. And that's deeply absorbed. That kind of meditation is deeply absorbed. And it's very much in detail. And so that's what Akrura was doing. Akrura was meditating in detail what's going to happen when he sees Krishna and Balaram. How Balaram would take his hands while they're still in a palm folded. He'll grasp my joined hands while I'm still standing with my head bowed. He was seeing all the details of his interaction with the Lord in his meditation. And actually, and the big difference between sort of this impersonal, the meditation that goes on today and meditation in Krishna consciousness is that meditation in Krishna consciousness is absolute. So it's not different. The meditation and actually doing the activity that you're meditating on, they're the same thing. It's not two different things. It's not meditating leading to something else. By meditating, you're accomplishing the same thing as if you were personally interacting with the Lord. That's the strength of the meditation. And that's proved by the fact that here it's described that Akrura was experiencing ecstatic symptoms just because of this meditation. Not because he did the activities, but just in his meditation he was experiencing ecstatic symptoms. And so how those ecstatic symptoms were experienced and how he was meditating is also special in Krishna consciousness, because it's an experience of rasa. It's sort of a rasika meditation, because the meditation is not different than interacting with Krishna. So the meditation that Akrura is displaying here is specific to his internal relationship with Krishna as his servant, and therefore we find him meditating on things while I'm still standing with my head bowed, and after embracing me, he will take me to his house. So he's meditating of himself in a very humble way as a servant of Krishna. So it's specific in that way too. Not only is it detailed, my hands are joined, my head is bowed, he embraces me. Not only are those details there, but the emotions that he's experiencing are also part of the meditation. And and it's specific to his individual relationship with Krishna. So, although I can't say for sure, but my understanding is that Akrura's relationship with Krishna is as his servant in Dasya Ras. Does anybody have any other information than that? Dasya Ras. So if we look at the 5 elements that make up Bhakti Rasa, we can see in these elements, particularly as they relate to Dasya Rasa, how we can see how Akrura is meditating in Dasya Rasa. For instance, the Anubhava for Dasya Rasa, the voluntary activities that one engages in, impelled to do based on the loving emotion to Krishna, they're described as things like this: sitting at a lower level, following orders, managing Krishna's daily affairs, offering obeisances, humility, renunciation of displeasing behavior, etc. So we see in Akrura's meditation, this humility and following orders is something that we find there. So he's actually experiencing Bhakti Rasa in the Dasya Rasa with Krishna in his meditation. He's actually experiencing that. And so it's true for all the different rasas, different devotees. If we look at how different devotees are in meditation upon Krishna, then we can see how they are manifesting these different symptoms of Bhakti Rasa. Take, for example, the gopis. We just read the chapter of the gopis' rasa dance with Krishna, and in that there is the famous Gopi Gita. So if we examine the verses of Gopi Gita, we can also see how the gopis in separation from Krishna were meditating on Krishna, and how their meditation is reflected in the 5 different elements of rasa. Let me read 1, 2, 3, 4 verses from the Gopi Gita. It says here, well, maybe first I should read the symptoms, the elements of rasa that the gopis that we look for when we read these descriptions. They are okay. Objects, Anubhava. When the gopis meet Krishna, the display of their exchanging glances, as well as their joking and laughing behavior, is called Anubhava, or sub-ecstasy in conjugal love. So, this idea of exchanging glances when they meet Krishna and interact with him is part of their experience of Bhakti Rasa. And so what do the gopis in their meditation and separation from him do? If you read this, if you listen carefully, you'll find the same things. They say, the nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul of those suffering in this material world. These narrations, transmitted by learned sages, eradicates one's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune upon whoever hears them. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Certainly those who spread the message of Godhead are most munificent. Your smiles, your sweet, loving glances, the intimate pastimes and confidential talks we enjoyed with you, all these are auspicious to meditate upon. They touch our hearts, but at the same time, O deceiver, they very much agitate our minds. So again, they're agitation. They're not looking for a peaceful existence, but they're agitated by love, by meditating on his glances, his sweet smile, confidential talks. Dear Master, dear lover, when you leave the cowherd village to herd the cows, our minds are disturbed with the thought that your feet, more beautiful than a lotus, will be pricked by the spiked husks of grain and the rough grass and plants. This is their meditation. It's sort of torturing them. When they think about his feet being so soft and he's walking barefoot in the forest and the stones and the grass will prick his feet, it completely disturbs their minds. But that's how they meditate on Krishna. And so they find, they experience their loving sentiments with Krishna in these ways. And so the gopis, in their meditation, their minds are agitated. Similarly, Krishna's cowherd boyfriends, their minds are also agitated by meditating upon Krishna. And I have an example of that as well. Okay, the cowherd boys. Swarupa Goswami mentions various expressions of fraternal devotion. This is Anubhava again. Krishna played with his intimate friends, and sometimes sometimes by fighting or wrestling with their arms, sometimes by playing ball, sometimes by playing chess. Sometimes they carried one another on their shoulders, and sometimes they exhibited their expertise by whirling logs, by joking together, and by swimming in the pool. All these activities are called Anubhava. Whenever all the friends would assemble in the company of Krishna, they would immediately engage in all these functions, especially dancing together. So you can imagine Krishna's cowherd boyfriends meditating on Krishna, waiting for the next day, thinking, well, I'll defeat Krishna. And we wrestle, and I'll do this with Krishna, and I'll do that with Krishna. And that's how they meditate upon Krishna. So the meditation is not different than the activity. That's the main thing that we should understand. And how, and the ecstasies we experience in this type of meditation are real. And I'll give you one last example of this. And it involves this last verse that we read, or one of the last verses we read here. When Akrura is rolling in the dust at Krishna's lotus feet. Here's the translation. Increasingly agitated by ecstasy at seeing the Lord's footprints, his bodily hairs stand on end because of his pure love, and his eyes filled with tears. Akrura jumped down from his chariot and began rolling among the footprints, exclaiming, "Ah, this is the dust from my master's feet." Now, if you read the Sanskrit there, it says just that. Prabhu, my master, Amuni, these, Angri, from the feet, Rajamsi, dust, particles of dust, Aho iti, with these words. That's what it says. But if you go to the Nectar of Devotion, do you know what it says at the Nectar, in the Nectar of Devotion? It doesn't say that. Prabhupada, in his presentation of this verse, and in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami quotes verses So he quoted, he's probably, I didn't have time to go and find in Bhanu Maharaj's translation if this verse from Srimad-Bhagavatam is quoted there, but that's his usual, the way he presents it. He quotes verses. So then, what Prabhupada wrote in Nectar Devotion is referring to this verse, but he says something different. Why does he say something different? You know what he says, you know what Prabhupada says? Prabhupada says, how wonderful is this? How wonderful this is. How wonderful this is. How wonderful this is. That's what he has Akrura saying. How wonderful this is. How wonderful this is. Not that, this is the dust of my master's feet. Why is there a difference between these two things? Yeah. Yeah, Prabhupada is experiencing the ecstasy of, and that's why he's saying, how wonderful is this? It's a feeling of emotion rather than just, it's an experience of Akrura's experience. It's hearing Akrura's experience and experiencing one's own ecstasy and individually expressing one's own ecstasy. That's the difference. That's the difference. And so, by meditation, we can meditate very deeply. We can meditate very personally in our own individual relationship with Krishna. And we can experience ecstasy individually through such meditation. What to speak of actually meeting and interacting with Krishna. So that's the difference between this kind of vague quietude of meditation that people are attracted to in this material world and meditation on Krishna as a Vaishnava. So are there any comments or questions about these subject matters? Madam Mahaprabhu.
There's two things I thought of was when Prabhupada was explaining how to do translation work to Sarva-Bhavana. He said that there's two methods. There's literal, and the other one was called Bhava Artha.
Oh.
And he says the Bhava Artha he prefers. And you were just giving the example of that. He says you enter into the mood and what he was trying to convey, understanding the whole passage, and then put it in your own words, as opposed to doing each word one by one. And I thought of something that was kind of relevant to this is Prabhupada had a purport on 2:4:24, and he says, the pure devotees of the Lord, however, equally relish the nectar in the form of profound philosophical discourses and in the form of kissing the Lord in the rasa dance, as there is no mundane distinction. So, between the two. As when you asked that question in my mind, I thought of, because he's there, that empathic connection was there, so he was experiencing that Bhava Art.
Well, speaking of no mundane difference between the two, Nagaraj gave a very interesting class, I think last week or before, about lotus feet, and while we think about the lotus feet and talk about the lotus feet so much. And so I had some realization that I'd like to add to that discussion. And it begins with a discussion I heard about how Krishna is absolute, and so there's no difference with different parts of his body. There's no difference then from his feet or his hands or his head or his chest. Or they're all absolute. They can all perform the functions of each other. So then why do we focus on the feet? Well, my realization of why we focus on the feet is because the feet, focusing on the feet puts one in a humble position. It's an opportunity to express humility in relationship with the Lord. That we take the position of meditating on his feet, a lowly position of wanting to receive his feet. Although any part of his body could similarly be approached, but out of this kind of, as you said, bhavarta, Bhava Artha. The essential mood of our relationship with the Lord is humility and submission, and so therefore the feet become prominent. Yes, I'm going to.
Lotus feet actually is an outlet. It's not like, yes, all the form of the Lord are same, but we Gauriya, Prabhupada says, we specialize Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Govinda, Radha Gopinath. If all the forms are same, then why we specialize particular Radha Madan Mohan for Sambandha, Radha Govinda for Abhideya, and Radha Gopinath for Praja. So there is a difference amongst the form, even though all forms are same Satchidananda. Because Srila Govinda Maharaj also explained that Radha Madan Mohan actually established our constitutional relationship with the Lord. So Radha Madan Mohan, what Sanatana Goswami, how he manifested and he established, there is a very specific distinction, difference from Radha Govindaji. Radha Govindaji establishes the Avideya. So he explained that, I mean, even Prabhupada's translation, one translation he says, Krishna is very beautiful, his face is more beautiful, his smile is still most beautiful. Well, all part of the Krishna's body is same, but still Prabhupada said more, most. So there is a much difference. And also he said lotus feet is actually a place that where all the feelings and relationship also emanates, that even the peacock that is on top of his head is sometimes tilted to see why all the Rishi, Yogi, everybody is meditating on the feet. Am I missing something? So I was like, Narad Muni was asking, why you were a little bit bent? He said, because everything coming out through the feet, everybody is praying there. Even Rupa Goswami Padi said, Nikhila Sruti Mauli Ratna Mala Dhuti Nirajita. Everything coming from your toenail, my Lord. Did not say from his thigh or his. So there is a distinction about the lotus feet that is only showed. I was thinking also that there is one verse in 11th canto. Lord Krishna told to Uddhava, he says, Katham bina roma harshan dravita chetasa bina anandasya kalaya suddhita bhakta vinashaya. That one, those who are sadhaka practicing in this process of Krishna consciousness, Lord Krishna knew what requires. So he's giving a logic, cause and effect. He says, Katham bina roma harshan, when you hear about me, do you feel the hair stands on end? Do you feel some attraction? And if you don't feel attraction towards me, if you don't feel attachment, like Prabhupada gives this Maya Shakta Manapartha, very famous verse, that Kadam Bina Ramaharshan, then how do you know your heart is softening? And if your heart is not softening, then where is the chance that the tears of love will flow while you are serving me? And if the tears of flow is not produced or does not come, where is the guarantee that your consciousness is purified? So he's giving cause and effect to Uddhava. Therefore, it is required one to be absorbed. As interestingly, also Siddhar Swami, he gave I thought it was very practical. In Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada translate when, chapter 10, when one somehow or other, or some way or other, establishes his continuous relationship in the mind, that relationship is meditation or remembrance. Prabhupada gave it, I thought it was it's like a Sanskrit sloka almost, even though it's in English. Prabhupada said one's continuous relationship establishes in the mind somewhere or other, that is the remembrance or meditation. Because meditation in a dictionary says the function, absorption on the function of the mind. Whatever, somebody is doing something, that is his meditation. But generally we think meditation like something isolated or something. But meditation means the absorption of the function of the mind. So there Siddhar Swami says that two-way the devotee or the soul can come to pure goodness connection. One is by accepting the bhakti following the Guru's instruction, Sadhu's mercy, if we can be Nirgun platform above the three modes, then he will feel his heart is attracted by hearing, chanting. That time his heart softening. At that time he should feel he establishing connection with Shuddha Sattva. Without Shuddha Sattva connection, not possible in spiritual progress to go on, because there has to be some impetus. The taste has to be there. But taste will come only that time. And then he gave the second one, which I thought was like a Prabhupada's blessing, that he says when someone comes to Krishna consciousness and he somehow or other become fortunate by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, that he comes in contact with a devotee who comes from the spiritual world, Ragatmika or Krishna Parshad, because there was I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth, because in Vrindavan they were reading and...
Yes, a lot of detail, maybe.
Yeah, but then they asked Prabhupada, he heard it says, text 8, that one should follow the Brajavashis. And Prabhupada said, I am here. So he did reveal sometime that he was Krishna Brajavashi. So there Siddha Swami says, if somebody follows that, even in mature states, like a green mango and a ripened mango, even if he follows strictly, then he should feel, that person, that he is already connected to Shuddha Sattva. Then very soon he will be attracted to ecstasy feeling that Akrura is feeling.
Thank you. Anyone else? We have these two individuals already. Anyone else? Okay.
This parallel, the way that Rupa Goswami explained it in Nectar of Instruction, just a little bit further down that same verse there, it says, in the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravana Dasa, the stage of hearing. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy name of Krishna and hearing of his transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes, one can obtain to this stage of acceptance called Varna Das. When one obtains this stage, he becomes attached to hearing of Krishna Katha. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, he obtains the stage of Smarnam Bhattam, the stage of remembering. So we were just talking about the constant from the Nectar of Instruction somehow or other. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance, and trance are the 5 progressive Krishna Smarnam, 5 items of progressive Krishna Smarnam. At first, remembrance of Krishna may be interrupted at intervals, but later, remembrance proceeds uninterrupted. When remembrance is uninterrupted, it becomes concentrated, and it is called meditation. When meditation expands and becomes constant, it is called anusmriti. By uninterrupted, unceasing anusmriti, one enters the stage of samadhi, or spiritual trance. After Smarna Das or samadhi has fully developed, the soul comes to understand his original constitutional position. At that time, he can perfectly and clearly understand his eternal relationship with Krishna. This is called Sampati Das, the perfection of life.
Hare Bol. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
That's it. I'm washing it in holy water.